Secondary break. Welcome back. I'm Graham Bunn, former D1 college point guard, diehard Tar Heel fan, and got my brother and two guard, my backcourt mate, Mr. Zach Talitsky, UNC alum, all around great guy, and very knowledgeable when it comes to college basketball, specifically about our Carolina Tar Heels. If you guys are enjoying this show, I know a lot of people are mad at me because I mislabeled, and I did that on purpose. I know everybody's like, dude, come on with the bracketology. We're going to go through the brackets. This is our second show. We're doing a back-to-back. We don't sit out on back-to-backs. We don't sit out night two. We're both going to suit up and give you our best. We're going to go through the brackets, give you our final four, our national champion, and we might even give you a score to go along with it. That being said, if you guys are enjoying or you're catching this, we have had some success with the videos. We started this literally I kind of tricked my brother into hanging out with me so we could just kind of talk about Carolina hoops. And I jokingly said this last show, but I meant it. A lot of truth is said in jest. We didn't think anybody's going to watch this. Although, and I probably do it more so than my brother. I'll let him chime in, and then we'll get into the picks. I watch every single play of Carolina and pay attention to the blogs and recruiting and all of that. So if you happen to be a Tar Heel fan, you will get some information here that you might not necessarily find anywhere else, especially I am proud of my background. I feel like I was an overachiever in basketball. Didn't play in the NBA, played overseas, played professionally. But if you saw me and how unathletic I am to get where I was, I'm really proud of the work I did. So welcome to the show. Like and subscribe. We appreciate you guys. Zach, what's going on? Did you fill out your bracket? How you feeling?
I did fill out my bracket. I've reached the point of revising my bracket so many times that, I feel like I've lost track of what I was trying to do. And I go through this process every year where I'll just sort of get it down on paper, and then I start reading too many things, and I start looking at the matchups too closely, and I overanalyze it. And I also tend to pick chalk. And you're like, well, we know that's not going to win. And so then I start trying to figure out who do I think the general public is overrating and underrating, and I change my picks. And so I've reached that stage now where it's just a total freaking mess. So I don't know, maybe I'm alone in this. Maybe other people go through this. I have no idea.
Well, hopefully you and I will help each other. So every year I have two brackets, and I don't fill out two, but in my mind I have two brackets. I picked Carolina to win the national title. Like I'm just not gonna not do that. Not always the best choice. This year, I think we have a very viable chance to make a march and win the national title for sure. Then I have the analytical basketball side of me and rational side of me that picks games based on teams' production, last 15 games, et cetera, that formula. And those two brackets don't always match up. So we'll go through some of the brackets, and how about we do it this way? Because we've never done this. This is a first for us. We'll go through the regions all the way to the Elite Eight, and then we'll kind of circle back and just talk about our Final Four and national champion. I'll call out the matchup. You give me your winner or loser. There are a few of these games, and I'm going to be completely transparent with people that I'm basing it off of things that I've read and haven't scouted. And I'll specify when I see that, like, hey, I haven't seen either one of these teams play. I've read this, and this is why I went with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. You had mentioned before we get started, you were looking through, the regions, and we're going to go region by region. Which one was the hardest? And shout out, not throwing any shade because he was cool enough to do a show with us, Mr. Ryan Hammer. I actually disagree with a lot of Ryan Hammer's picks, but I do respect what he does. I love that he's a friend of the show. He came on here and he's super analytical. So if you're into analytics, I think he's got something called the trapezoid of excellence that kind of breaks down, well, analytically in the last 10 years, this. He's next level. He's great. But he was saying something like, I saw one of them and I was like, well, that's where we part ways. I don't know if I can base any of my bracket on what he picks, saying that UConn had a cakewalk to the Final Four. And I was like, well, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think UConn, they're like the bracket of champions. Everybody's in there. I think Illinois is a 3 seed in there. They got Auburn, who might be the hottest team in America, in there. I mean, Iowa State's a 2 seed. He lost me when he said that. And then you had brought something up about it. So I yield the floor.
Yeah. So I just went and pulled the net for the top 4 seeds in each region. Because my visceral reaction, and when it came out yesterday, was that the East was the hardest and UConn really got screwed. And if you go by these metrics, that actually gets backed up. So UConn's 2 in the net, Iowa State 6, Illinois 13, and Auburn's 5. So in a Sweet 16 game, according to the net, for whatever that's worth, or if you want to look at Ken Palm, it's basically the same. You know, UConn, the number 1 overall seed, is going to have to play the 5th best team in the country who just won, you know, arguably the conference tournament that, I mean, they have conference tournament champions for probably the 3 hardest conferences this year, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC. So I don't know what Ryan Hammer's talking about. I know he's good at the analytics, but just based on the net, the East is by far the hardest.
I read somewhere where Auburn was like the only team in the tournament that was both offensively and defensively rated in like the top 5 in KenPom. So like that's brutal, and they're going to have to see UConn in the Sweet 16 potentially.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
I mean, Auburn was also really way underseeded as a 4. I mean, just about on any metric. So I don't know how that happened. And then the next hardest, according to this metric, would be the West, where we are. It's a combined 36. So the East was 26, 36 in the West. UNC 8, Arizona 4. So it's the only bracket where the 2 has a higher rating than the 1. Baylor's a 15, and then Bama's 9. So we would have a also a tough 4 matchup, the second toughest 4 matchup if Bama ends, and we both end up getting there. I actually kind of disagree with that. Like I still like our bracket, but I think that's because I don't buy Arizona as a 4. You know, as the 4th best team in the country. And again, maybe it's a fluke sometimes when you happen to catch games on TV, and I watch them get beat by USC at the end of the season. I know they lost to sort of a bubble team in Oregon in the conference tournament. I know they lost some other sort of bad games in the Pac-12. And I just generally feel like it's tough to make a really deep run when you haven't been battle tested in a better conference. So the next one is the Midwest. Purdue's a 3, Tennessee is a 7, Creighton at 11, and Kansas at 19. But I rate Kansas higher than 19, and I know what the metrics say, but I think when they're fully healthy, nobody wants any part of that starting 5.
Do we know if they're fully healthy, though? Do we know?
I think they're supposed to get both those guys back. So, you know, whether they're 100% or not, I don't know. I think McCullers was a knee bruise, and then I think Dickinson had a shoulder, but I don't think it was like dislocated or anything. So I think they're.
I mean, I watched the game. It happened. I watched it happen and watched him. I think it was the Houston game, and it was either Houston or Iowa State. I can't remember exactly, but I remember it was under the basket. Somebody came down on his shoulder as he was trying to go up, and then, you know, down the tunnel, and he was out.
So then, of course, that leaves the South at a 43 with Houston 1, Marquette 14, Kentucky 18, and then Duke is actually the second highest from a net perspective in that region. So I don't know. It's interesting that UConn got, to me, such a tough bracket, and if they make it out of that bracket, which most people were predicting they will, I think they will have earned it.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it, man. Now, again, we'll start it out. Let's just, you know, you were talking about UConn, so let's go ahead and start with UConn in the East. UConn, Stetson, and I'm not gonna pause on some of the games that, for the most part, overwhelmingly, will, you know, so that way we don't bog anyone down. I got UConn there. I would imagine you got UConn as well.
Yep.
All right, we'll move along to the FAU Northwestern game. Who you got?
I'm going FAU. I think, you know, Final Four experience last year, have the team back, a lot of very good guards. And, you know, I don't like Chris Collins because he played at Duke.
All right, that's where we part ways. I'm going Northwestern, and the only reason I'm basing that on is I saw a small sample size, and I saw 2 of the Purdue games where Northwestern had Purdue on the ropes both times, and the one on the road was really impressive. Had it not for Zach Edey being the biggest, most giant person on the planet, I think Northwestern actually wins both of those games down the stretch. But I'm going Northwestern. All right, San Diego State, UAB. A lot of people are talking about UAB in this game, and obviously there's the whole 12-5 thing. I didn't buy that. I went San Diego State just because of the experience in the deep run that they've had recently in the tournament. I think it was last year they made the Final Four, even the national title game. Is that right? National title
That
game.
that's
UConn.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Dutcher seems to me is like a great coach.
Mhm.
And yeah, UAB had to win that conference tournament just to get in. So I know they're
Mhm.
hot, but if you just take the total body of work, I'll take San
Mhm.
Diego State.
Auburn, Yale. I know you love Yale. You're biased there. Your son goes to Yale. What are you thinking? Auburn, Yale here.
Yeah, I would have picked Yale had they gotten a better draw.
Yeah.
And sorry, my son and I, because the last time they got in, they got a tough LSU team, and we're like, "Come on, man, just pair them up with somebody outside the SEC." Just these big, strong athletes in the SEC. It's tough for
Mhm.
Yale.
Yep.
So yeah, I got Auburn there.
All right. BYU Duquesne.
BYU, I love BYU.
Me
I
too. Shoot
think
it really well.
shoot it
Shooting
really
travels.
well. Yep,
Mhm.
yep. I like BYU there big.
Illinois, Morehead State.
Don't know anything about Morehead State, so I'm taking Illinois.
Watched Illinois a lot and missed the championship game,
I
but
watched it. Yeah.
big time players make big time plays in the NCAA tournament, and Terrence Shannon might be a top 2, 3 talented. I don't know if he's the best, but talented players in this tournament. I think Illinois is poised for a deep run. There is some upside to some upsets later on in the brackets, so stay tuned. But I got Illinois there. All right, moving right along. Washington State, Drake.
Going Washington State.
Mhm. All right, for me, I took Drake here. I had to pick some upsets. Drake seemed to be a very popular pick. Just to quote him, and I respect his opinion on a lot of things. Jay Billis was really high on Drake and quoted a ton of reasons: their ability to rebound, shot efficiency, and I think he said they had great guard play. And I think guard play matters when it comes to the tournament. You got to pick some upsets, and so for me, right here, I reached a little bit, but I went Drake in that one. And Iowa State, South Dakota State. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that both of us got Iowa State.
Yeah.
All right, moving along, second round, UConn versus you got FAU. I got Northwestern. I think both of us take UConn there. UConn advances.
Yep.
Then we got San Diego State, Auburn. I got Auburn. I would imagine you do as well.
Yeah, I got Auburn.
All right, BYU and Illinois. We both have Illinois and BYU in those games. I took Illinois there.
I took BYU.
Really? All right, there we go. You got to talk to me about this one then.
So some of this is I play the statistical odds of
Okay.
what is the rest of the world picking
Okay.
versus what do I think the potential split is in the game.
Yeah.
And I think this was like a 70-30 nationwide Illinois pick. And I think it's probably closer to a pick 'em game. I think if you look at their Ken Palm type stuff, they're 10-11 or something like that. They're right next to one another. I think BYU has been battle tested this year in the Big 12. Won some big games in the Big 12. They won at Kansas. I think they beat
Yeah, they finished
Baylor.
fifth. They finished fifth in what I think was by far the best conference in America.
Yep, yep. And so I like Illinois too. In fact, I even thought about putting Illinois in the Final Four. So this bracket to me is crazy, and maybe it's
Sure.
just going to go scratch, and UConn's going to roll through it, and UConn's going to come out of it.
Mhm.
But honestly, I could see 4 or 5 different teams getting out of this bracket.
Yeah.
So it's a tough call, but I went BYU.
Yeah, you're not alone in that. I happened to catch a little bit of the ESPN bracketology show, and everyone, Jay Williams, who we love, friend of the show, did our show, incredible. Seth Greenberg, Jay Billis, and Reese Davis. They're all over the place with this bracket. So, like the experts that watch every game and have access to the most heralded research teams, and even the experts are all over the place with this bracket. So, at some point, you just got to roll the dice. How do you feel about the team? Who do you like to pull for? Who you going to enjoy playing for? And if you're putting money on it, pay attention to the money line and the spread. But I got Illinois there. I like Illinois. I feel like they've proven themselves. They won the Big Ten tournament. I saw both the Purdue games, and I just feel like they're really balanced. The point guard is big. They rebound. They're tough defensively. And I do feel that they've been in some big games and in front of big crowds, and the kids are not going to be overwhelmed by some of the arenas that they play in. Neither is BYU, for that matter. I mean, the Big 12 is incredible. But I got Illinois there. All right, moving along. Drake, Iowa State. Iowa State for me is one of the best teams in America. They just took Houston to the woodshed. And
Yeah.
somebody very close to me texted me. I was at the ACC tournament. I was not able to watch that championship game, so I don't know how they did it. But somebody very close to me texted me and said, "Man, Iowa State's taking the lumber to Houston right now." I pulled up the score and it was like 30.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa State, I picked in this game. I had Washington State, not Drake, but I picked Iowa State. I'm a preview here. I have Iowa State winning a few more games.
Yeah.
Number one defensive team in the country, turn the ball, turn people over at a very high rate. And they have good guards, both Lipsy and Gilbert, excellent guards. So, yeah, I like Iowa State.
All right. Also, if this is getting confusing for anyone, we're just going to splice in here and I'll try to remind everybody. I'm going to get a photo of Zach's bracket. I'm going to post a photo of my bracket and we'll put it on the Tar Heel Takes and Secondary Break Instagram account. So if you're like, man, I don't want to listen to this whole thing, and I totally get that, it is now long enough to where I think we got credit for the view. so I'll just go ahead and tell you to get on it over to Instagram. We'll have that uploaded and you guys can look through the picks if that helps you at all whatsoever. And hopefully it does. Hopefully you win $1 million, you win all your brackets, and you come back here and you're like, man, those guys were right, all right.
We won't be. I'm gonna go out on a limb.
No. You speak for yourself. All right. So our Elite Eight, I have, and then I'll let you go because we're gonna stop and we'll give our final fours. We'll move forward. We're gonna switch regions, but I've got UConn and Iowa State out of that region, out of the East region, making the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I got Auburn knocking off UConn. I have Iowa State beating BYU. So I got Auburn and Iowa State. Again, I'm kind of just playing some odds here. I think,
Sure.
America is going to go overwhelmingly to UConn. Yeah. If you look at Auburn, top 5 national team based on the computer metrics. So, you got to do a little bit of something to try to win your bracket. And so I'm also getting some 2019 when Auburn made the Final Four run and they knocked us off when we were a 1 seed.
Yeah.
They gotten hot at the end of the year and won the SEC tournament. I'm getting some 2019 Auburn vibes. This team plays a little bit differently. They're less reliant on the three, but deep, really deep. I think maybe they can harass UConn into a poor shooting night and then throw some bodies at Klingon. Johnny Broom's a really skilled big guy, can maybe make Klingon step away from the basket a little bit. Yep. So I think Auburn's got a puncher's chance there. So I'm gonna roll with the Tigers.
All right, we're gonna switch it over. Going into the South, I'm gonna go ahead and say we both got Houston there in that first one. Nebraska, Texas A&M. I see everybody all over the map on this one. Where are you at?
I'm going Nebraska. I think I love I don't remember his name, but the Japanese shooter, man.
Yeah.
Big believer in the mayor. Really good coach. And they can shoot the ball. And I think they're probably more consistent shooting the ball than Texas A&M is. So I'm gonna go with the Huskers.
I like Texas A&M in this game. I like the athleticism from the backcourt, and unfortunately, one of the reasons that I picked Texas A&M is because I don't think the shooter can guard the backcourt. It's going to be a defensive, I don't want to say mismatch, and I don't want to say liability, but I think it's going to be very challenging in that game because of the athleticism and the way Texas A&M rebounds for that shooter in this game. But again, a pick 'em. That's why it's an 8-9 game. Texas A&M. Wisconsin, James Madison. A lot of people high on James Madison. I went to Appalachian State, so I'm not high on James Madison. Your boy I think I had 15-10 at JMU when I was in college, so I'm not a big, what are they, the Dukes fan? Who you got here? I got Wisconsin.
I got Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's underrated. They started off the season very hot, had a lull, but I think they rounded into shape. I thought they were playing very well in the Big Ten tournament. I like both Storr and Chucky Hepburn. They've got
Storr's awesome.
Yeah, they got some big guys who have some skill. I'm not sure James Madison seen that as much. And I think Wisconsin's a very tough 5 seed.
Also, Wisconsin really well coached.
Yes,
really well coached, and I think coaching accounts for 5 to 10 points. I know that's a lot
Yeah.
in some of these games, especially in the first round. Just incredible. So I think he has his guys ready to rock, and I think Wisconsin takes that. I know it's popular to take the 12-5 upsets, but I don't have it here. I got Wisconsin. All right, Duke, Vermont.
Got Duke on with this one. I think they just got
Same.
probably too much skill and
Mhm.
talent for Vermont. Probably too bad for Vermont. If they'd have gotten a different draw, maybe they'd have
Mhm.
more potential. That's obviously a winning program. Coach
Mhm.
Brennan does an incredible job, and I got Duke there.
All right, NC State, Texas Tech.
I got Texas Tech. I think over
Mhm.
the season in total, much better team than State.
Mhm.
I just don't know whether or not what happened in the ACC tournament can carry over, and whether they can sort of get back up in the for this
Mhm.
game. So I got Texas Tech.
I'm in agreement
I'd
with
love
you.
to see State win. By the way,
Yeah,
it'd be awesome, but
sure.
tough for me to pick them.
I'm in agreement with you. Emotionally, 5 games, 5 days, that run, I don't know. Confidence is an all-time high. I took NC State here. But again, that is me doing some bracketology and trying to pick up some points where other people weren't. All of the professionals that I've seen have taken Texas Tech. I think they finished 4th in the Big 12. If I'm not mistaken, before the ACC tournament, NC State had a losing record in conference play. So, on average, throughout the entirety of the year, Texas Tech, with the seeding, you could tell was a much better team. But I took NC State here, literally just trying to pick up some points in the bracket challenge. So you guys, anybody that's listening to this, take that for what it is. And also, I'm from Raleigh. Both my parents graduated from NC State, and I want to be cheering for them. Kentucky, Oakland. Everybody's picking Kentucky. Do we need to discuss this one?
I'm taking Kentucky.
All right, sounds good. Florida, which I think is going to be, I think it's Colorado in that game. I know they're playing the play-in, but who do you got on that one with Florida?
I end up taking the play-in winner for this. I actually like Florida,
Mm-hmm.
but I think this is another one where the country was picking Florida at like a 70% rate.
Mm-hmm.
I think like the odds are probably going to be closer to 60-40, maybe even 55-45. It
Yeah.
just felt like a lot of people were on Florida. So my logic here was not that I don't like Florida. This is where I get myself in trouble over analyzing. It was just
Mm-hmm.
more trying to pick against the tendency here.
Yeah. I took Florida. And again, I took that off of the strength of the SEC. So anybody watching this, again, not a lot of research behind those games. The SEC, to me, I respect it as a conference. Florida has got some big wins, and so I took Florida there. Marquette, Western Kentucky. I got Marquette.
We got Marquette, yeah.
All right, back to the top. Houston, and then either Nebraska or Texas A&M. We split ways on that one. I got Houston.
Got Houston.
All right, Wisconsin, Duke.
I struggled with this one. I ended up going with Duke. But I thought long and hard about picking Wisconsin here, but I think maybe Duke's guard play is too much for him. But Wisconsin's got a big, deep front line, which I think could give Duke trouble. But I still went with Duke.
Okay, so I went Wisconsin for that exact reason. I felt like sometimes, and I was at the ACC tournament, so I was there to see the guards not really show up, and I think that is their strength. Filipowski having to play down low, where I think he's more talented on the wing. I thought Wisconsin's front line was too much there, and I think I personally think it's going to prevail, so I took Wisconsin there. All right, NC State, Texas Tech or NC State. I took NC State. I don't think it's going to matter either way. Versus Kentucky, who you got?
I picked Texas Tech here over Kentucky.
Really? Hey,
yes.
There we okay. All right, now we got to talk about this one a little bit. A lot of people are there. I mean, I'll pull up. Let's see who was. So Seth Greenberg has Kentucky in the national title game.
Yeah.
And Jay Williams has Kentucky in the Final Four.
Yeah.
So, this is a big pick by you. I'm gonna give you the floor here.
I like the Big 12. I think Texas Tech is really battle tested, and I think that Kentucky, on a given night, they could be the best team in the country, but you just don't really know what you're going to get from them, and you don't know if they're going to defend.
Oh, we
And
know they're not going to defend. I'm going to correct you. We know they're not going to defend.
yeah.
They're going to try to score 110 points.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I think through my bracket, I generally did not pick or favor the teams that, were really high offensive efficiency but really low defensive efficiency. Just because I think sometimes in the tournament, pace and styles and teams you're less familiar with and all that stuff, you don't really know what kind of officiating you get. Sometimes that'll play against you. So I don't know. I don't really have great logic here, but a bit of a hunch.
Okay. I took Kentucky, and one of the basis I pulled off that is just raw talent. And again, I feel like players make plays in big games. I don't know of anybody in the country that has two projected top 10, top 11 NBA draft picks on their roster. And then neither one of those was their best offensive player, because I think you can make an argument for Antonio Reeves being, he was probably second in the voting for SEC Player of the Year behind Dalton Knecht. So they're just loaded in the backcourt. And so I took Kentucky, and I understand why people are going crazy. I think you're going to be surprised down the road as we keep talking about it where Kentucky ends up for me. But I took Kentucky in that game. Moving along, Florida. I have Florida. You have Colorado. Go ahead.
So by the way, so I pulled it up. Texas's BPI, Texas Tech is 24. Kentucky's is 21.
Okay.
And so I think that was part of my logic too, is again, I think
Nice.
America, the split here is like 80-20 or something, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, for fun,
you got to pick a few upsets.
Oh, you definitely do. But I would imagine most people that are watching this, and myself included, like by no means am I an expert. When you hear the word Kentucky, innately your mind, there's a little bit of bias to it. It's hard not to be biased with the amount of success that Kentucky has had in the NCAA tournament. And overall, I still think that they're number one in most career wins in NCAA. Number one, not number one in the NCAA tournament wins, because Carolina's number one. So that's really cool. All right, moving along. I have Florida. You don't have Florida, but they're playing Marquette. Do you have an upset here? I have Marquette. So we're in agreement there, and I'm praying that Marquette is healthy.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're getting Kolek back.
Okay. So back up to the top for the Elite Eight to finish up the South. I have Houston playing Wisconsin. You have Houston playing Duke. Who you got?
I got Houston.
Same.
I thought about picking Duke, but I just feel like Duke has not demonstrated the toughness throughout the season to win this game. You know that Houston's going to bring the toughness. You know Houston's going to crash the offensive boards. I'm not sure that Filipowski can stand up on his own there. Mm-hmm. And I think that Houston's got the athletes and the length on the perimeter to slow down Duke's perimeter game. So I think this is just a particularly bad matchup for Duke.
Yeah, I'm biased, and so many people are picking Houston to lose before the Final Four. I think, watching Iowa State just dismantle them.
Recency bias.
Yeah, I think people are falling in love with that performance. I've gotten a chance to see Houston play 7-8 times. I love their team. I think they got the best, on average, backcourt in America. I think they're one of the toughest teams in America. They just have that dog mentality. And I think even when you have off nights, if you can rely on your defense and the frantic pace that turnovers kind of force on other teams, Houston has it in spades. All right, Houston, Marquette. Who you got in that?
I got Houston. So for all the reasons you just said, really like Houston this year. So I think Marquette's a very solid team, particularly if they get Kolek back, but not enough to take out Houston.
All right, first hosting fumble of the night. We were supposed to stop at the Elite Eight. I did not. So there you go. There's your first Final Four pick, Houston. And we both are in agreement there. All right, we're going to head down to the Midwest. We're going to save Carolina for last, because save the last for best. Purdue in the first round game. Do we need to talk about it? I got Purdue.
Got Purdue.
Utah State, TCU.
I'm going Utah State here.
Okay.
They won, which I think a tough, Mountain West. I know TCU's Big 12. I've been picking a lot of Big 12 teams. This was another one where I think TCU, even though it's an 8-9 game, most people are on TCU in this game. So I
They
thought
are.
I thought I might be able to pick up kind of a cheap advantage over some other brackets by taking Utah State, but I'll have a ton of conviction here if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I took Utah State as well, and I'm with you. I was trying to pick up some points because, for the most part, all of the brackets that I had seen people fill out or some of the experts talk about it, they went with TCU. I don't know much about TCU, so I took Utah State there. Gonzaga, McNeese State. Now, a lot of people are picking this 12-5 game, McNeese State. Now, the one thing I do know about McNeese State is they have a couple big-time scorers, and they've got some great players in the backcourt. And guys that can rock with power fives. So there's a reason that this is a very popular 12-5 pick. What do you got?
I'm going Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mark Few is a great coach. I think they're rounding into shape, playing
Mm-hmm.
some of their best basketball. So I took Gonzaga.
Yeah, I love experience, especially in the first round here for Gonzaga. I took Gonzaga as well. Kansas, Samford.
Took Kansas.
Same. All right, we'll keep on going. South Carolina, Oregon. Now, Oregon is fully healthy and coming off a lot of big wins. Who you got?
South Carolina. I've not watched a single second of Oregon all year. I have
Yeah.
watched several South Carolina games. I think what Lamont Paris has done there is incredible. And that
SEC
team,
Coach of the Year, right? SEC
yeah,
Coach of the Year.
yeah, and that team has some dog in them too. And they've got a
Dog.
bunch of guys who will get after it, play good
Yep.
defense. They got a couple big wide bodies in the post. So I may be underselling Oregon. I really have no idea. I just know that I've been impressed with South Carolina.
Look, I think this game could go either way. Oregon, once they got healthy, one of their bigs was out early, and they dropped a few games. They're a completely different team, and for their performance, I am I'm not trying to trash the conference. I'm just a much firmer believer in the SEC than I am of the Pac-12
Same.
or Pac-10. Yeah, so I'm taking South Carolina there. Now, Creighton, Akron. A little bit of bias to me for Akron because they're in the MAC. I played in the MAC in college, but I took Creighton there purely based off of a few games and then what they did to UConn during the regular season, and that was just incredibly impressive to me. I think UConn far and away has been the best team in the country. We saw them; they took us apart in December. So, who you got in that Creighton Akron game? Do we need to talk about it?
I got Creighton. I think Creighton's
Same.
an excellent team.
Mm-hmm.
Really well coached. A lot of different options on offense. Guys who can score.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Creighton could go a long way, I think, in this tournament.
All right, Texas, and then the play-in winner, UVA or Colorado State.
Yeah, I'm going play-in winner here again. Trying to pick up some points against the brackets, and that I think again a really high percentage of people are on Texas. So anyway,
yeah, I'm on Texas. I like Max. Is it Abrams or Asmus?
Yeah,
The score. He's
yeah.
got NCAA tournament pedigree in him. He's played well. He's been a star. I think he made his name for himself. And I think 2 years ago he led the nation in scoring. I think he's a tough shot maker, and I think he's too much for either one of those, UVA or Colorado State. So I took Texas. I am going to go ahead and say I'm going to walk back my prediction of Texas making the Final Four when we initial reaction. So that, just to give you a preview, that won't be happening. And then Tennessee, St. Peter's, I took Tennessee.
Yeah, no repeat run for the Peacocks.
All right, back to the top. Purdue, Utah State.
Purdue.
Got Purdue as well. Gonzaga, Kansas.
Kansas.
I took Gonzaga there. I was worried about the health of Kansas. I took Gonzaga trying to make up some bracketology ground by picking a lot of chalk. So this was one of the upsets that I had picked. I took Gonzaga over KU.
I mean, I thought about putting KU all the way to the Final Four, which tells you how high I am on KU. And I think they maybe have the best starting five in the country. It's certainly up there. Their depth is a little bit of a question mark. Bill Self is obviously a great coach. Went with Kansas.
All right. South Carolina, Creighton.
Took Creighton. I was talking Creighton up a second ago, so I have to take them here. I think it's a tough draw for South Carolina. I actually had in my mind that I might take South Carolina further, but I just couldn't put them past Creighton.
Yeah, I took Creighton as well. All right. I've got Texas. You've got the play-in winner there, but do you have Tennessee advancing?
I do.
All right, Tennessee as well. All right, so this brings us to our Elite Eight in the end of our Midwest region. Purdue, you have KU. Who do you got there?
I took Purdue.
All right,
Don't have a
I
ton of
also as well.
conviction. Don't have a ton of conviction in that pick, but I
Mhm.
took Purdue.
Also, just I have the Zags in that matchup. You have KU. I think Edie is a better player than Dickinson, and so I think KU hangs its hat on Dickinson. I think Edie kind of wins that battle. It's not even like a dead steady. So I'm with you. I took Purdue and Creighton, Tennessee. Who you got?
I took Tennessee.
Same.
Thought long and hard about this one, but I think Tennessee's longer, more athletic, more depth, um, and it's hard to go against Dalton Connect.
Yeah. All right. I took Tennessee as well. We'll come back for our final fours there. All right. Headed over to the West region, which obviously we are well vested. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that my bracket here is there's a lot of, I'm going to give you my heart bracket. I'm not going to give you my what I think will really happen bracket. And I'm not going to mention names, but someone that's very close to me, they also do this and they pick against their own team in betting situations. So either way, they're happy. So I'm not doing that. I'm gonna give you my heart, and I'm just gonna tell you what I think. I got North Carolina in the first round. Do we need to talk about it? I don't think so.
Nope, I got Carolina.
All right,
I'm not,
I'm interested to see where you sit on this one. Michigan State, Mississippi State. Now, Michigan State, you had mentioned that, or maybe I think Ash had mentioned, if you missed that, Michigan State's Tom Izzo, who was an incredible coach, has a 65% winning percentage when he's the lower seed in the NCAA tournament, which is pretty incredible. Who you got in this matchup?
I went back and forth and changed this pick 2 or 3 times, but as it
Same.
stands now, I have Michigan State.
Okay, I took Mississippi State.
Okay.
And I thought, go ahead.
Well, what happened was originally I'd put Mississippi State, and then I realized their best player is this kid Hubbard, who's great, but he's just like sort of 5'9", 5'10" guard, and but he's a freshman, and so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to take the senior experienced point guard Walker over the freshman guard, and so that was really the reason.
Yeah. I like the way Mississippi State shoots it. That's the only reason I picked them. It was a first round game. I didn't spend a lot of time researching that. It was a toss up for me because I love Tom Izzo. I love the way his team plays. I think the program is built for tournament success. There's a reason that he's won so many games in the NCAA tournament because I think his system predicates success. Hit the boards, high octane effort, and that travels when it comes to wins. So it's a pick 'em. You guys take whoever you think there. I took Mississippi State, but literally just because I thought they shot the ball well, and Michigan State sometimes struggles to score. And scoring now, as the years go by, I think scoring becomes more of a factor. But again, yeah, that's a pick 'em. All right. This is also an interesting game. Our bracket is really interesting. St. Mary's Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I have St. Mary's in this. I know a lot of people have been talking about Grand Canyon. St. Mary's is 15, BPI, and they're I think really well coached, can really shoot it. And their efficiency metrics on both sides, offense and defense, are both high. Balanced team. So I took St. Mary's.
Nice. All right. So 12-5, it's like crazy years where there's 12-5 upsets. I'm with you. I think St. Mary's is analytically the safe choice. I had to pick a 12-5 game. This was the only one that I thought was in question at all for me, that I was second guessing. So I went out on a limb just literally for my bracket standpoint and went Grand Canyon. Now, I know Grand Canyon has some players that are really highly touted, have had success against big programs, and I like that Bryce Drew is the head coach. That's the only reason I went with Grand Canyon. So that's where we kind of separate. Alabama, Charleston. Who you got now? Charleston, high octane offense. Alabama plays zero defense. And so this is also kind of a challenging pick, but I went Bama.
I went Bama.
All right. Clemson, New Mexico. Very popular game in the upset alert. Very popular amongst the experts.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Clemson. I picked them with about as little conviction as possible. But I like their big guys. I like both PJ Hall and Shefflin. I think Girardi's going to show up, make some big shots. So yeah, I took Clemson here. New Mexico is another team that
Mhm.
probably doesn't make the tournament unless they win their conference tournament.
Mhm.
So yeah, I sort of put them in the NC State bucket a little bit. But yeah, so I took Clemson here.
New Mexico's driven by their guards. I like guard play. I didn't think Clemson's guard play held up. They were too inconsistent for me. I would love to pick an ACC team. I want all ACC teams to win all games always. But unfortunately, right here, and I feel pretty good about this upset pick. I took New Mexico. Going on, Baylor, Colgate.
Took Baylor.
All right, Nevada, Dayton.
Took Dayton.
I took Nevada. Any Did you pick them or any kind of feeling there? Any numbers
No.
behind it? Okay, me neither. Well, some of the experts are talking up Nevada quite a bit, and they said,
you
"Go ahead."
usually my 7-10s and 8-9s,
Mm-hmm.
because I assume they're all roughly 50-50 games.
Mm-hmm.
If one of those, the general consensus is like it gets out of whack, like more than 60% of the people are picking one side or the other, I pick the opposite.
Okay.
And so I think Nevada, for whatever reason, there's a bunch of people on Nevada here. And so I figured I would take Dayton just for the heck of it.
Strategically for me, because they play Iowa State in the second round, I picked the upset, and I did the same thing with the East region in Drake. Drake and Nevada both were. There's like a rundown analytically of 10 seeds that, when they fall in this section of KenPom, have advanced to the Sweet 16, and both those teams qualified for that. But I literally took this as an upset just because you got to pick some. I just don't want to pick the chalk all the way across the board. And they're playing Arizona in the second round. So for bracketology purposes, or you're trying to win your brackets, I thought it was a good upset to pick because I got Zona in the second round there.
Yeah, I got Arizona there too.
All right, you got Arizona. We'll go right back up. Baylor, either Clemson or New Mexico.
You go back up the top?
Yeah, we'll
first?
go. We'll just go up.
So I've got Carolina beat Michigan State.
Okay. All right. I got Carolina as well.
And then I went back and forth on this game a bunch, but I ended up going St. Mary's.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
I got Bama there.
Yeah.
Literally for the conference. I went on based on the conference there. And I do like Mark Sears, the point guard from Alabama. I think he's really tough. I think he's guard play travels and success. I've said it 100 times in the NCAA tournament. When you got a good point guard, you got a shot to beat anybody. I think Mark Sears is as good as they come.
Yeah, I guess what I'm playing on there is that I think maybe St. Mary's could control the pace and maybe frustrate Alabama and make them really work on the defensive end. I mean, St. Mary's is going to be very comfortable, making them defend for 30 seconds. And I could see Alabama getting impatient, losing discipline, and St. Mary's, shooting, at a very high rate. But I could also see the opposite happening of Bama just getting out like to a lead and making St. Mary's play against their style. This is one of those games where you sort of feel like the first 10 minutes are really, really critical. But I went St. Mary's.
All right, you went St. Mary's. I went Bama. I felt like it was just too much offense, and the size of Alabama, I thought would kind of maybe factor into their lack of defense. Like just their size and length alone would make it less of a deficiency against. And what I have is Grand Canyon in that game. I thought Alabama's size would kind of mask some of the deficiencies that they have on defense. All right. I have the Baylor game. I think you have Clemson. I had New Mexico.
I've got Baylor.
I got Baylor as well. And Zona, Nevada.
I've got Arizona.
I got Zona too. All right, so this is our Elite Eight. We'll go right back up to the top. I got North Carolina.
I got Carolina.
Let's go. All right, Baylor, Zona.
I went Baylor.
I went Baylor too, baby. I went Baylor, taking the Caleb Love game off the table. I've seen a ton of Baylor games. I like the way they're constructed. I think they, at every position, defend and make things tough, and I think that they've been in a ton of big games, and I don't know why no one is picking Baylor here. Everyone is picking Arizona, and it seems as if almost everyone's picking Zona to advance further than that. You and I can talk about that later, but I got Baylor here.
Yeah, I got Baylor too. I think they've got some big guys that can slow Ballo down.
Mhm.
And then guards wise, I think they match up very well too. And again, I'm just not a huge believer in Arizona. Seen them lose some pretty bad games.
Yeah.
And I think Baylor's playing really well here in the last month.
All right, going back up top, we'll get into the Elite Eight, going into the Final Four. We both had UConn. Oh no, I had UConn, you had Auburn, and I think we both had Iowa State. I'm not sure.
That's correct.
All
I
right,
took Iowa State here over Auburn.
I took Iowa State over UConn, baby. So I got. I think honestly, I think UConn rolls there as the overall number one seed. I think they're the best team in America. Here is where if anybody's watching this, I just didn't want to go chalk and pick all these number ones to go. So I was like, look, I don't think it's going to be all number ones. And I loved what Iowa State did. My respect for Houston is giving me the Iowa State's got to be for real, because I just think Houston is an incredibly good team. And to whoop them by 30 in a conference championship game, you are working with some serious momentum there. So I took Iowa State. Iowa State is a Final Four team for me in my bracket.
I took them as well. I'm sure Connecticut will roll and make me regret it, but
Sure.
I had to do something a little different.
Yeah, same. All right, let's go on over to the Houston bracket. I already kind of spilled the beans on my pick there. I took Houston, so I won't regurgitate it. I think you have Houston Marquette in the Elite Eight. Is that right?
That's right. I also took Houston.
Wonderful. All right, let's go down to the Midwest. Purdue, Tennessee. Is that right? We both had Purdue, Tennessee there.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. I think we might part ways here.
Yeah. I went Purdue.
I did too. All right. I went
Okay.
Purdue as well. I think the guard play for Purdue, by the way, just to add a little color there, because I know everybody's fixated on Zach Edey. One, I don't necessarily buy into the whole, well, UVA lost in the first round as a number one seed, then they came back and won the national title. The same thing's going to happen to Purdue. They lost as a number one seed, and now they're going to come back and win the national title. I think the guard play for Purdue is severely underrated. I watched a bunch of games, and those guys, they don't turn the ball over. They're really well coached. They stay and play within the system. They're not afraid to dump it down to Edey, but when he gets doubled, they knock down shots. And so I think that that's going to be a big deal. Edey is the two-time national player of the year for a reason. So he's going to get a lot of attention, and I think the guards are going to stand up. I do love Tennessee. I think it's going to be an incredible game, which most Elite Eight games are, but I got Purdue going to the Final Four.
Yeah, I do too. Edey's very efficient. They get to the free throw line a lot, which, is the most efficient way to score. Dean Smith always coached it. They don't foul a lot, so they generally have a big free throw advantage. And, they are much better from three this year. Last year they were, I don't know, lower quarter of the country. I think from three this year, they're top quarter of the country.
Yeah.
And so now it's much harder, I think, to swarm Edey and just rely on them missing. It's sort of tough to do given, they've gone out against double-digit
Yeah.
seeds 3 years in a row. But
Yeah.
I'm going to ride Purdue here.
Yeah. Wasn't it like 13, 15, and 16?
Brutal.
I mean, brutal. So if you're picking this game and, you just want to take history into account, it does not look good for Purdue. But I took Purdue there to make the Final Four. All right. In the West region, North Carolina, Baylor we both got it. How you feeling?
I'm going to go Tar Heels.
Tar Heels.
Yeah.
I'm also going Tar Heels. I think that's
Okay.
a tough one. I would say that's a heart pick for me. I'm really high on Baylor. And again, you get down to these Elite Eight games, most of them are pick'ems. Like they're both going to be great teams. But I went Tar Heels.
I went Tar Heels. I didn't initially think I was going to, and then as I thought more and more about it, and I started thinking about, what do I believe in, and what do I think carries teams? And I think this team loves playing with one another. I think they play with a lot of joy. I think that they're hungry. And I think RJ and Baycott give us, a ton of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the defense is going to show up. I think when we've really wanted to defend, we've been awfully hard to beat. And,
Yep.
so I'm believing in the defense here, and I think it's going to carry us through.
So For me, it was really hard. This game's really hard. I was picking North Carolina no matter what because I want to be able to cheer for North Carolina with my whole heart, which I will. The one thing that I do worry and I am concerned about is our team somehow turning into a two-man show and just depending on Baycott and RJ to produce all the points. And when we do that, and then also allow teams like NC State, who I do not think is on the same level or caliber team as Baylor, to shoot 55% from the field for the game, that was a comedy of errors, and I worry about those things. But I'm picking Carolina. Experience matters. And I think we have it in spades. I think Elliott is growing up right in front of our eyes. I wasn't a huge fan. Anybody watched the previous shows? I wasn't a huge fan of some of his games in the ACC tournament, but I think he's incredibly talented. I think he's one of the best true point guards in America, and he's going to be a star for us. So I took Carolina there. So I got Iowa State, North Carolina, Purdue, and Houston in my Final Four.
We have the exact same Final Four. This is not going to help anyone listening.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people have the same Final Fours, you know. And honestly, what if we're right? Then hang our hats on it. You know what I mean?
Everybody's like, I've been listening for 50 minutes, and they gave the exact same Final Four.
Would have been? I think it would have been way worse if we had different. I feel like it was like, oh wow, those guys they're aligned. You know.
Well, maybe we'll differ from here on out. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Purdue, Houston.
I went Purdue.
Okay.
And again, and so I'll tell you why after we pick the final game.
All right.
But I went Purdue on this one.
I took Houston there. And if anyone's been listening to the way I've been raving about Houston this entire show, I don't think anybody's shocked. And we'll get into that, why in the breakdown of the national championship game. All right, Iowa State, North Carolina.
I took Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
This is where my emotional hedge comes in. And I just think Iowa State, given the quality of defense they play, will be able to really kind of take away what we want to do.
Yeah, I just muted your mic. We're just not even going to listen to you. You just been muted. We're going to move right on past that. I took North Carolina, baby. North Carolina, go Hills, baby. All right, let's go back to we'll take Zach out of timeout here. All right, there we go. And yeah, we'll go to the national championship game. I guess we'll hear your national championship game pick.
I've got Purdue over Iowa State in the national championship game. So the reason I picked Purdue is all season, right? There's been this 3-team debate, Connecticut, Houston, Purdue. They've been trading back and forth. Mm-hmm. And now, sort of here we are, at the tournament. And I think what's going to happen, if you look at the Vegas betting odds, Purdue of those three has by far sort of the worst Vegas betting odds. Mm-hmm. But if you look at all the computer statistical models, they're slightly behind Houston and Connecticut, but essentially sort of right there with them. And I think Connecticut maybe has like a 14% chance to win. According to models, I think Purdue has a 12% or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so really this is not a pick for what I believe. This is a pick in an attempt to win the bracket where hopefully, if I'm in a bracket grouping with 20, 25 other people, there's really only a couple of other people end up picking Purdue. Yeah. And then, you just sort of hope the rest of your rounds are good enough that if Purdue wins the whole thing, then, that carries you through and wins the bracket. Where it's sort of much harder, I think, if you pick Connecticut or Houston. If you told me who I think is going to win, I would say Connecticut. And so some of this is basically trying to game the odds a little bit to try to win the office pool.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. If I was having to put money on it, because I don't have a ton of money, I'm betting on UConn. And a lot of it would be chalk, even though, this year, for example, just the last week, championship week, 11 out of 33 teams that were ranked number one in their conference going into the conference tournament won. Only 11. And then 3 out of the 4 1 seeds lost. So, it's been upsets all year. I don't think it's going to go chalk, but if I had to put money on the national champion, I would have said UConn. I got North Carolina, Houston, and I'm taking the Tar Heels. Also, a little bit of bias there, and I was picking regardless. I worked backwards. I took Carolina in the national title game, and then I did everything else.
Yeah, well, I mean, That's what my heart says too. But I almost never pick Carolina.
Yeah.
So it's become, a little, again, a little bit of a superstitious thing. Um, so, but that would be awesome. I
Yeah.
would now you say you would bet Connecticut, but would you bet Connecticut given the actual odds?
What do you mean the
Meaning,
odds?
yeah, yeah. So the odds for Connecticut right now. I'm looking at the FanDuel sports bet book is plus 370.
Mhm.
Um,
No, when I said place money on it, I meant like if I was doing $100 bracket challenge,
yeah,
I would take UConn there, just in my bracket.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
the
you're not
payoff.
saying based on the actual Vegas odds. Would you bet
Correct.
UConn?
Correct.
Yeah,
No, no. Yeah, just doing like tournament challenge with my. Now again, you and I went to Vegas. This is probably 10, 15 years ago, and well, we ran into each other in Vegas for the NCAA tournament, and I was out of money before the first session of round one, and you were rolling in the money. So I would advise everybody to listen to Zach when it comes to betting money on the NCAA tournament, because I was fresh out of school and knew every single player for every single team and couldn't pick a game for my life.
I got hot that year.
Yeah, I was so pissed at you. I was like, I'm not talking to this dude forever.
But UConn, I mean, it's crazy how much money is going on UConn. I mean, it's bet 100 to win 370.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think their odds are. I mean, their actual odds are nearly that good. Um, and then Houston is plus 600. Purdue is plus 700. Um,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
then it goes to Arizona plus 1,300. We're plus 1,700. I'm a little surprised we're that high. We're tied with Tennessee.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting tournament, and it gets going tomorrow, which is exciting. So I'm going to get this thing up there, and hopefully we get some people to check it out. If you guys are listening and you're still listening, one, thank you, amazing. We hope that you win your brackets. Hopefully we helped a little bit. And again, I'll get our Zach. Will you send me a photo of your bracket, and I'll get them posted so anybody that is watching this and they didn't want to listen to the whole thing, which I do not blame you, they can just go and check the picks there.
Yes, yeah, I'll shoot it over now.
I did win a bracket challenge last year. Now there was only 10 people in it. It was with my friends, but I did win it last year, which was nice.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've won, so take that in consideration.
I also won fantasy football this year, so I'm doing pretty good.
As
I'm
did
on a
I.
roll.
As did
Yeah,
I. So we need to do a
there we go.
fantasy football show apparently.
Yeah, we got to do a football show for sure. All right, go Heels. Are you going to get to watch any of the games tomorrow?
Yeah,
after work?
they'll be at night. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll watch them. I'm doing a Calcutta, which is really fun. I don't know if you've ever done one of those.
Mhm.
So we'll be doing our auction, but we'll have the games up
Oh, nice.
behind us. Yeah, so I'll get to watch them.
All right, amazing. Go Heels.
Go Heels.